The vast majority of horror movies usually make it immediately clear who audiences are going to root for and who they're going to wish for death, establishing the plucky, resourceful final girl and a bevy of lesser obnoxious meat sacks ripe for a killing. But sometimes horror movies love to subvert our expectations and do something different with a seemingly stereotypical, stupid, or downright useless character. Enough that you might even fall head over heels in love with them. And that's certainly true of these horror movie characters, who, despite inviting low expectations from the jump, actually turned out to be fantastic characters in their own right. Hell, perhaps they even ended up stealing the movie, nay, the franchise, away from the real protagonist. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie for What Culture, and let's take a look at these horror movie characters way better than expected. Kicking things off with Eric Campbell, Final Destination's Bloodlines. From the moment we meet protagonist Stephanie's cousin, Eric Campbell, in Final Destination Bloodlines, it seems like he's going to be the movie's resident deadpan snarker, an obnoxiously quippy wise-ass we can't wait to see die. But that's not quite what happens. After a series of fake-outs in which Eric is inexplicably spared from death's scythe, we learn that he was actually the product of an affair, and therefore never part of the Campbell bloodline that's being targeted by death. It's a fun twist for the series, and Eric's incredulous reaction makes it even more amusing, as well as the fact that he's now placed in the odd position of being immune to death while trying to prevent the rest of his family from dying. Of course, it ultimately doesn't end well for Eric, as his efforts to save his brother Bobby cause death to take him out as collateral damage regardless. Yet Eric was largely celebrated as the sequel's breakout character, enough that he even has his own Wikipedia page. Who could have seen that coming when the first trailer dropped? Not you, don't lie. Kirby Reed, Scream 4. When Kirby Reed was first introduced in Scream 4, some fans rolled their eyes that she basically appeared to be a gender-flipped version of the franchise's late movie buff extraordinaire, Randy Meeks. But Kirby absolutely acquitted herself throughout the sequel, largely thanks to her fiery personality and Hayden Panettiere's fun performance in the role. And so, a character who fans were initially skeptical of became Scream 4's most celebrated, enough that many decried her apparent demise in the film's third act. Yet Kirby's stabbing death was ambiguous enough that fans continually campaigned for her to be brought back into the fold, with an Easter egg in Scream 2022 nodding to her survival before she was indeed drafted back in earnest as an FBI agent in Scream 6. Across almost 3 decades and 6 movies, Kirby remains one of the series' most popular characters, a far cry from all the misplaced hand-wringing about her being a lazy female Randy. Sergeant Doyle, 28 Weeks Later. When we're first introduced to Sergeant Doyle in 28 Weeks Later, he seems to be just another generic soldier, especially as he's played by a pre-The Hurt Locker Jeremy Renner. Doyle initially doesn't seem to have much personality, though in the second half of the story he becomes decidedly more interesting when he refuses an order to shoot survivors on sight in an attempt to contain the spreading rage virus. As Doyle links up with the film's other central survivors, he basically proves himself to be the single most competent character. A low bar, admittedly, using his combat skills and operational knowledge to keep the group as safe as possible. And of course, he commits the movie's biggest act of bravery, sacrificing himself to push-start a car containing his group, resulting in him being torched to death by flamethrower-wielding soldiers. You deserved better, Doyle, but in the bleak world of these films, it's not remotely surprising that the biggest hero got one of the gnarliest deaths. Specs and Tucker, Insidious. When paranormal investigators Specs and Tucker were first introduced in the original Insidious, many questioned whether they might upend the movie's tone and lurch a little too far into goofiness. After all, Lee Whannell is the film's writer, and as anyone who's seen the original Saw can testify, not a classically trained actor. But far from overzealously inserting himself into the film, Specs and Tucker are actually among the franchise's best and most memorable characters, behind only their partner, psychic Elise Rainier. Though they do function primarily as comic relief, it generally isn't overdone to the point that it undermines the suspense. They're an adorable duo whose easy chemistry makes them a delight to watch every time they show up. Thankfully, the filmmakers evidently took notice of their popularity in the first film and ensured to give them parts in every single sequel. Jesse Walsh, A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. Naturally, there was considerable disappointment among fans when Nancy Thompson didn't return in A Nightmare on Elm Street 2: Freddy's Revenge, prompting many to immediately take umbrage with her seemingly dull male replacement, Jesse Walsh. And while most will certainly agree that Jesse is no Nancy, his character has become something of a cult favourite over the years, largely due to the film's perceived homoerotic subtext. The sequel sees Jesse fending off Freddy Krueger as he attempts to possess his body in order to kill in the real world. And this has been interpreted by many as a metaphor for Jesse's repressed queerness bubbling to the surface. Though there's been much back and forth about the intent of the filmmakers, actor Mark Patton has spoken extensively about playing Jesse as explicitly gay. And this unexpected flourish has helped Jesse endure as a queer horror icon over the decades, rather than a mere also-ran replacement for the series' original heroine. Tennessee, Alien Covenant. Many eyebrows were raised when Danny McBride was cast in Alien Covenant, because given the man's tendency to play larger-than-life douchebags in broad comedy movies and TV shows, he just seemed like an odd fit for the super serious world of Alien. But to the surprise of just about everyone, McBride wasn't actually a lame throwaway comic relief character. As Tennessee, the pilot of the Covenant, he's probably the most likable person in the entire movie. For one, he's a pretty chill guy with a certain laid-back charm, while also being competent at his job. And he's also innately sympathetic, considering he spends the latter half of the movie mourning his wife, Maggie. McBride basically obliterates every expectation the audience has of him here, in turn plugging effortlessly into the franchise. However, in an ironic twist of fate, fans probably won't ever get to see him again, because though he technically survives to the end credits, it's heavily implied that he's imminently due to be experimented upon by malevolent android David. Dr. Sartain, Halloween. The moment that we're introduced to psychiatrist Dr. Ranbir Sartain in 2018's Halloween, it's pretty clear that he's basically the legacy sequel's answer to Dr. Loomis from the original run of movies. And to hammer the point home, Laurie Strode even hilariously calls him the new Loomis upon meeting him for the first time. But rather than simply be a Loomis stand-in, Sartain is really the other side of the coin. A character whose interest in Michael Myers is so overpowering that he actually orchestrates Michael's escape in order to study him out in the field. As ridiculous as it is, evil Loomis is certainly a fun subversion of expectations and infinitely more interesting than the movie just giving us Loomis 2.0. Plus, he gets one of the best deaths in the entire franchise when, after desperately urging Michael to just say something to him, Michael stamps his head into bloody pulp. Deputy So-and-so, Sinister. Deputy So-and-so in Sinister is another classic case of a potentially cringeworthy comic relief character who threatens to derail the movie's delicately crafted atmosphere, only for them to end up making the film even more entertaining. Though there's an expectation that Deputy So-and-so will probably be a goofy, incompetent cop, he's actually a genuinely funny and likable character who is relatively capable as horror movie police officers go. While initially presented as a bit of a bumbling fanboy of author-protagonist Ellison Oswalt, he ultimately acquits himself as smart, brave, and dedicated, helping to piece together the central mystery while also being dryly amusing and charming. It's as much a testament to James Ranson's performance as it is the writing, enough that Deputy So-and-so came back for the mostly forgotten sequel, Sinister 2, and is pretty much the only praiseworthy thing about it. It's just a shame we haven't seen even more of him, honestly. Helen Shivers, I Know What You Did Last Summer. On paper, Helen Shivers in I Know What You Did Last Summer didn't seem like much to write home about. A cliched, airheaded beauty queen who plays second fiddle to the more wholesome protagonist Julie James. But despite dying in the movie, Helen ultimately became the series' most popular character, in large part due to her deeper-than-expected character development, especially in the post-accident portion of the movie. Helen is revealed to be more tragic and complex than her initial presentation implied, and it certainly didn't hurt that Sarah Michelle Gellar gave it her all in the role. And of course, who can forget Helen's iconic death scene, coming at the end of a taut chase sequence that's far and away the single best scene in the entire franchise. In fact, Helen has such esteem among the franchise's fanbase that many question to this day whether she should have been the protagonist instead of the rather less interesting Julie. And finally, Burt Gummer, Tremors. When the original Tremors was first released, not a single solitary soul could have ever predicted the longevity that the supporting character of Burt Gummer would have. Gummer, introduced as a seemingly stereotypical conspiracy theorist and prepper, seemed ripe for a killing. And yet he ended up becoming not only the series' breakout character, but its actual protagonist. In the original movie, Burt makes for a fun sidekick, but truly comes into his own in the sequels after Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward departed the franchise, leaving him to become the de facto lead character, without whom the series likely wouldn't have made it to 7 movies. Though the quality of the sequels wavers significantly, Gummer is fun to watch in every single one. A winning mix of hilarious and surprisingly competent for the most part, elevated by Michael Gross's never phoned-in performance. Hell, he's great even in the Western prequel Tremors 4 The Legend Begins, where he actually plays Burt's great-grandfather Hiram Gummer, because, well, why the hell not? It's a testament to how unexpectedly popular Burt is that fans were genuinely devastated when he seemingly died in the 7th and to date final installment, Tremors: Shrieker Island.